Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Zach.
You at least got to tell him it's the Covenant Cast.
Let me start over. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Covenant Cast, where we've got our tagline, and I'm Zach.
I'm Steven, and we're going to work on that tagline later. We got a lot of work to do on the brand side of things, don't we? Keep playing. Where I'm Zach and keep playing. Hey, you know what we're going to do today? Speaking of keep playing or starting playing.
Oh, Lord.
We're going to do it's going to be a great little case study in consumer psychology, courtesy of Zach. Because
the resident guinea pig.
He's getting into Magic the Gathering because of this Lord of the Rings set. And I get to watch from afar and just watch it happen. And I hear all these questions and I see him posting in the Discord about like all these different types of products. And then, I saw the old Profess did a video about all the product fatigue in Magic. And then there was this new announcement where there's like one ring and it's a serialized 1 of 1. And that's wild. So we're going to talk about all of that and what's it like to get into Magic from the perspective of Zach, who has never played it really before. Stay tuned.
A little bit of context. If you've been with us for a long time, me getting into Magic might be shocking. The kind of thing that you put in a YouTube title to get people to click.
Yeah, I guess
somehow.
So.
Someone plays Magic. That's
you are
tantalizing,
getting into
right?
Magic,
I'm what?
You're getting into Magic.
I know.
You're getting more into it than we did when we streamed it just for that one-off Commander game.
April Fools with The Walking Dead.
You're having to think about it. You're thinking about it after work. That's getting into it.
Yeah. So here's the deal, yo. When I was a kid in the 90s.
Oh, gosh. Why does it always start there?
Yeah. That's where everything comes back
Every
to.
podcast starts with Zach. When I was a kid in the 90s, I couldn't play D&D and I played Star Wars TCG.
Have you ever been to therapy? Because ultimately everything we are comes back to that first 10 years is crazy.
That's right.
But really, when I was a kid in the 90s, when I got into Pokemon, so I got into card games, and then that led down a whole pathway. But I for two reasons, never really played Magic. One, I would not have been allowed to own anything called Magic the Gathering as a kid. Yeah. 80s, there was a D&D, is evil, scare.
There's like a 2020 or Dateline episode. We should watch that again at some point.
I believe I did watch it like 6 or 7 years ago at some point, but it's really hazy at this point. But in the 80s, it was a big thing, and my parents are from Oklahoma/Texas, very conservative, so they were part of the church, and it was just like the scary thing. So anything related to Dungeons and Dragons, which then got bought by Wizards of the Coast, who then made a card game called Magic, and Magic has similar themes going on there, was strictly forbidden. I actually, after Pokemon, at some point played the Dragon Ball Z CCG from Score back in the day. I think is who made it.
That's good guess.
Ironically, when I was a little kid, my mom let me watch the Dragon Ball cartoon. And we watched Dragon Ball Z, the cartoon. But there were cards in Dragon Ball Z that I was nervous for my parents to see. So I just wouldn't put them in my deck. So I can't have that. And that's the whole thing. And psychologically, that does some things to you. But wouldn't have been allowed to play Magic. The second thing is I was a little young.
Yeah.
So in 93, when Magic was first coming out, I was only 5. And at the time, my older brothers collected comic book cards and baseball cards. So I was indoctrinated to how collectible things work early, and like this chase, and like it was a big deal, and that was okay, and that was
did they ever have the what's a Magic the Gathering moment to your knowledge? Because they were right in the pocket.
They did not, but I think it's because they would also have not been allowed.
Yeah. Okay.
That was
just known.
We just knew, like don't even try. So I was a little young when that came out, and by the time I was into card games proper, like we were teenagers when we started to compete and stuff. And this is like early 2000s, right? 2001, 2002, 2003. Star Wars TCG comes to mind. And at that point, I just kind of spent all my time playing games as the not Magic player.
Right.
And
became a bit of identity.
Yeah. And it's like, well, you find the stores that do have the packs for the games that you actually play. And then you're playing, and then you go to the I remember going to a Lord of the Rings TCG pre-release. Crazy. I went to a pre-release. It was really successful. I think there was like 40 or 50 people for that game. and played in that thing. And for some reason, Lord of the Rings was okay. Won't go into that. That's a different episode. But I remember being at that event, and at some point, it was time for the magic thing to happen. And they kind of just like cut off the event in the middle of the event and didn't care. It was just like, it's magic time.
It's magic
this
time,
event's
baby.
over. You know, like I think I was middle of game. It was really profound. I was young, maybe 11 or 12. And it was just like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Like I paid, at that point, $20 was like $1 million to me. So it's like, I convinced my mom, actually it was my brother Dan. I convinced my brother Daniel to drive me up here.
Yeah.
And take the time, and I paid the money, and I'm in the middle of a game, and you're just like kicking me out. This is absurd.
That'll get kind of put into you, won't it?
Yeah.
That kind of gets branded, where it's like, oh, okay, this is gonna stick with me. This is a formative moment.
I didn't know it at the time either. Yeah. It was just like I was not prepared, and then I think my brother had gone somewhere else while I was playing the thing, and I told him it was gonna be this much time, and then it wasn't, and I'm just. I can't, there's not a table for me to sit at. I'm just standing there with my stuff.
So then you just watch people play Magic in your seat.
Yeah. And so growing up as well, like if you weren't playing Magic, there was just a lot of superiority happening in terms of, they see you playing whatever. And it's like, oh, it's that dumb game or whatever it is.
What a distraction.
So there was a long time, and a little more context too. Wizards is the one that did Star Wars TCG, which we played. And they did this is a longer story than I expected.
You wrote articles for them.
Yeah.
I remember that. It was cool.
Yeah. I didn't tell my parents.
Top-notch articles.
Yeah, they saw a check coming from Wizards of the Coast. They would, what cult are you in?
I'd love to see that reaction.
Well, honestly, so...
Wizards?
So...
go on.
Wizards didn't know how old I was. They just knew that I qualified at that Star Wars TCG qualifier. And I didn't have a bank account. So they would send me a check for writing this article.
Yeah.
And I would get my uncle, who had the movie rental business, Charlie, to cash it for me. And that happened for a couple of years.
I didn't know Charlie was kind of like your fixer.
He was definitely, well, so the crazy thing is like 2 years in, at some point we were at a family like lunch over at my grandma's, and he was talking to my mom and dad, and he was just like, it's really incredible that he's actually getting paid to write those articles. And then my mom was like, what? And then that led to some uncomfortable conversations. But all that to say, didn't play Magic, kind of developed a negative impression of Magic players and just this like dominance of Magic in the space. And then Wizards did Star Wars TCG, which we loved. And they announced the like 10th or 11th set at their World Championship at Gen Con in August, probably 2003, I would guess. And then they proceeded to never say anything about Star Wars TCG ever again.
Yeah, they didn't even say like, "Hey, it's ending, guys. We had a good run. Appreciate it, etc." You know?
Just gone.
Just silence.
And that was really what kind of clinched.
So private press model.
Yeah,
a lot of great companies use that model.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of thoughts there, but ultimately, that's what sealed the deal for me on Wizards.
Mm-hmm.
At that, there was a long, probably 20-year period where it's like, I hate Wizards. I hate what they did. They're essentially just completely bad for the industry and holding it back, and like just this whole culture and this whole thing. Very angry at the status quo and at Wizards.
It's also associated with local stores so heavily too, which we had a lot of bad experiences with. And it's like these guys who we think are doing a very bad job at this really love Magic the Gathering. So it's like, well, those two things are starting to go together, you know?
Yeah.
What a good enemy.
And honestly, it wasn't until Star Wars Destiny, and it was that example I've said several times on the podcast now, where in that one night after a set came out, we made more money off of Destiny than we did the whole year of the LCGs that we had at the time combined. And it was just like, oh my goodness. And then growing up, having a little more on the ground experience of running a local store and making negative money, also called losing money, is the practicality of it. And like my empathy, I think this happens at 22, you think you know everything.
I've heard that.
And then at least for me, as time goes on, you really start to recognize how little you know about. But this is one of those examples where once that hit, and then you understand, we built a team, and I'm worried about paying the bills. I'm worried about people who work for us having enough money just to exist and live their life. And then it's like, oh, This is why every game store only cares about Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Pokemon. Like, just fundamentally, this is the lowest effort, highest return thing that they can be doing as a business. And I honestly cannot fault them for their lack of interest in taking risk or pushing forward or supporting publishers just because they're making a better game. If you have a giant Magic audience, you might love Fab, but the effort it takes to build a Fab community is high. The cost is high. And for most stores, if you've spent a decade plus building a community in your store, convincing a bunch of people that currently play a game that's very sustainable, very successful, very understood, very regular with their product releases and how it functions, to play a total unknown, and it's like,
it's got to be a second game, right? You can't be like, go from Magic to Fab. It's got to be like, hey, do you guys want another way that you can spend money with me?
Yeah,
you know, like that's basically
and
it.
As I have since learned, Magic has given me plenty of ways to spend money.
Tell
on a
me
single
more.
Product. Yeah. So why Magic, right? I think ultimately, why are we talking about this?
Because Gandalf,
etc.
And the elves.
In my growing wisdom, minuscule as it is, I understand. There was an article I was trying to write back in the Destiny days, which I was going to title "Can Destiny Beat Magic?"
Mm-hmm.
And I spent, I don't know, a lot of time trying to write this thing, and I eventually didn't write it. And then Destiny died, so I decided to stop working on it.
Guess we know the answer.
But the recognition for me is that tabletop as we know it today would not exist without Magic. And it's possible, you know, what's the name of that book about all the innovators in computing? I forget it. But
Halt and Catch Fire, you always talk about that.
That's a good show. But it's possible someone else would have connected the dots on collectible baseball cards and card games. And it's possible that the industry would have spun out very similarly either way. Like, you see inventions all the time. I forget the name of the book I'm talking about, but you know, it's like the microchip gets developed by two people.
Yeah.
Or some technology or some idea happens, two people on different continents before the internet, where there's no way they could have talked or interacted. So who knows what would have happened? But the industry we know today is largely shaped by Magic the Gathering. This includes the number of people that are into the hobby, to the way stores work and the number of stores and the way distribution works and the whole system. Like 1993, if Magic doesn't happen, it's very different today than it would have been, I think. That'd be my prediction. So credit where credit's due. Magic is a titan that has been around now for 30 years.
Created a ton of people that we now interact with on a daily basis.
Totally. So many people that I play games with, or like good friends of mine, got into tabletop gaming due to Magic. Like, that was the pathway. Or that's what they did for a long. Maybe they got in through D&D and then, or 40K or whatever it was, and then got into Magic, and then that's what got them into card games, and so on and so forth.
Netrunner, and then
and so many of the games that we love today were created by people whose love of games was created because of Magic. Even Flesh and Blood, like James with Legend Story, his story starts with finding Magic at the local game store. Mm-hmm. So Flesh and Blood probably does not exist today if Magic doesn't exist. And like, it's actually pretty profound. So as someone who's been in the industry for a long time, and someone who's interested in understanding the industry on a fundamental level, I've had a growing interest over time. There's a lot of assumptions I make and a lot of things I say about stores who support Magic and Magic itself and the way it works and people that play Magic. And, you know, I think the last decade has been really revolutionary for the player base. Commander came out, and like the mentality around what's going on, and like there's a lot of assumptions baked in though on who plays this game, what are they into, what are they like, what is it to be in this community. I don't know. I honestly have no idea what it's like to be a part of the Magic community. I don't even understand the product lines, and like, you know, turns out most people don't.
Let me can I just give people a TLDR actually of this? Zach likes Lord of the Rings, and Magic is making a one-off Lord of the Rings set that has really pretty cards in it.
Yeah. So, well, that's right. So it's kind of the perfect opportunity for me to experience Magic, because there is a Lord of the Rings only set, and there's one set, so it's contained.
Yeah, it's what they say.
Yeah. it's what it's supposed to be. One set, and it's a set that's going to be draftable. You can go to sealed events. You can go to pre-releases. You can build decks using cards only from this set, and the art is really cool. They revealed the land, as it's called, the resources, and it's literally. Have you seen these yet?
No.
So
I've stayed as far away from it.
Like it's actually like the Middle Earth map, but it's
Cool.
like different parts of the map for the mountains and the sea and the swamp and it looks great.
Lovely.
And I love maps.
Yeah.
So like it's just the perfect. My end goal.
Where should I go to see this stuff?
Oh, and the general channel of our Discord channel has
Really?
been popping all day long.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah. So if you're not there, you should be there. There's a little Discord pitch, but the ability. There's double interest for me, right? One is the ability just to see what it is actually like to play Magic and to understand the product and to have to buy it and to have to go play it and to be a part of the community. And it's an opportunity to do that in a very limited way.
Yeah.
I can kind of just jump in for this set and then jump out. My end goal is to either have a draft cube or like a set of commander decks, like 4. Just here's a.
You got to have 5. You got 1 for each land type.
That's fair. Yeah. But effectively, you can have a full table of commander going on in only Lord of the Rings reality. And that's really the short of it.
Is Commander not just a less interactive version of Game of Thrones where the table decides who wins at any given point? Like, because it's just decide who you want to attack and everyone's like, oh, this guy's too strong, so you burn him down for a bit, and then it's like, oh, well, now this person's too strong, and then the last person to convince people that they're not strong enough is going to win.
But then they actually are strong enough.
But then that's the secret, and they do some combo that nobody cancels or something.
I mean, the interesting thing is I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never played multiplayer Commander, but I know you can play Commander one-on-one as well.
Yeah, we did it.
Yeah, so like a Commander deck to me is really just, as far as I know, 100 one-of cards.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean.
And then you have a character that you always have access to.
Yeah.
So presumably it's like, oh, this is the Gandalf deck. I'm like, that's kind of cool. It's 100 Lord of the Rings random cards. Not random, but you get it. Of a color or a variety. And all the land are going to be, Middle Earth themed. All the cards and art. It's just a way to see all this crazy art. And like the thing that my first interaction with this Lord of the Rings set was actually one of my favorite artists from the FFG era, Magali, posted a picture of Gandalf fighting the Balrog, and it was art she had done. She's apparently doing a lot of the art in this set, and so it was like, oh, this is just really high quality, old school Magic looking cards and art in Lord of the Rings. If I'm ever going to own Magic cards, this is probably it.
Yeah, it's probably the way to go.
It's hard to imagine a better.
All right, so let's talk about your experience so far. So you get the announcement, right? You're a tabletop guy. And everyone's like, "Hey, you seen the Lord of the Rings set from Magic the Gathering?" You're like, well, that kind of looks. That's got to have some good art in it, and there's some things I might want to, have a collection of. Like you said, build some commander decks. No big deal. So what's your next step at that point? So you're like, okay, well now I got to figure out how I'm going to do this. What did you learn?
I learned a lot, and also learned very little because there's so much. It's just hard to take in. I'm a very, I would say, experienced card game player and card game collector. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty familiar with the ropes. And when they first announced it, there was very little details about it, so I didn't really. I was like, I'm gonna, in my brain, it's like I want to get some of that and check it out. And then they kind of started revealing more details, and very quickly, there's some really odd stuff going on. And by odd, I mean it's just not what I'm used to. Mm-hmm. I'm 0% casting judgment on it. It's just not what I'm used to because my most recent collectible experience is Fab. And to kind of paint a picture real quick, one of the things I learned very quickly is there are a number of product types. Mm-hmm. Now, forgive me if I'm wrong, because I could be still, and I'm trying to understand this the best that I can. So
that of itself though is kind of wild, right? Like going through Star Wars TCG and spoils and all the throwbacks and Flesh and Blood very heavily, and God, Pokemon, like all these collectible games. You go in. Now, Pokemon's a little weird, too. They've got all sorts of products I can't keep up with because we try to add them to the site for a while.
But Pokemon, is their booster boxes. Like if they're offering a product in booster box, they have booster boxes.
They're booster boxes.
Yeah, and then they're like alt arts and stuff, but it's like kind of like Fab. It's just booster boxes.
But in every one of those collectible games, there's a set about every 3 to 4 months, and you put you get a booster box with booster packs in it, and you can usually do limited play with those packs. You can just open them and collect the cards, and it's all the same. And there's one set every 3 to 4 months, and it's all the same set, same boxes. But that is not the case in Magic.
No. So let me run this down for you.
Okay.
So first off, there are what is called a draft booster.
Okay.
So it's a booster box, like you'd expect, that is built to be drafted.
And it says draft on it or something?
It literally says draft booster.
Okay.
So the intent of this product is it is designed and printed in such a fashion to make it good for drafting. So the breakdown of how many of each color of a card you get in a pack and like that is across a box is a certain spread, and then also the power level. So you don't like effectively there's more just like fundamental cards and less like crazy, insane constructed effects and high powered. There's still some of that stuff, but it would be like your traditional kind of like bomb things.
Yeah. So if we pause there and just think, okay, what you told me already so far, why would that ever exist? Well, like we dealt with this a lot, and particularly Flesh and Blood has dealt with this significantly. How do we create a set that can serve draft and sealed and also constructed formats?
Yep.
And they don't. So like they split off into supplementary sets, which is kind of getting into this vibe.
Fab, right?
Yeah, Fab did. Yep. But we got into, remember early on, it's like if you drew the that Rune Blade Scythe thing that did arcane damage and limited, Monarch, it was just like
you probably win most
you probably
of the time,
just win. So it makes sense that they would have, you could limit the blowout stuff and create a pack that is going to be very conducive to the best draft experience. That sounds really appealing to me.
Yep. So it's designed for that experience.
Yeah.
And then to give you context on what the draft is, you kind of also have to identify what it's not. So what it's not is called a set booster. So a set booster box is a booster box of packs that is not specifically designed for drafting.
Okay.
And so part of the goal here is to reduce what players have been telling me in our Discord channel is called chaff.
Yeah, draft chaff.
Yeah. So another piece of this that is again, different, and you hear it, and then now it's like I'm connecting the dots on it. So there's a lot of stuff in Magic booster boxes that is just strictly not playable and constructed.
Yeah. Well, that's the case with every game we played, right?
Yeah. And apparently like a large percentage of cards that come out in a Magic set are just not playable. They're playable in draft. They've got art and they've got stuff going on. But like, when you have as many cards and as much time and as many developments as Magic has had, there's a very clear line where cards have become playable or unplayable. And if it's not one of those top X%, it's just not playable.
Yeah. How many ways can you make a 1/1 creature?
So a set booster has higher variance. It's got statistically you're more likely to get higher rarity things and harder things to get and alt arts and crazy stuff going on. And you also get less of the like super common stuff. So they just actually print less of the commons. There's going to be commons in the draft boosters. They're still going to be pretty common, but like the goal is to reduce waste effectively for people that are just looking to open booster packs and complete sets of cards.
And play constructed, seemingly.
Yeah, which is why it's called a set booster. Like if you're just trying to build your set of Magic every time, like buy set boxes.
Okay.
If you're buying packs just to open or giving out prize packs, perhaps draft boosters aren't it. Like there's higher value in the set booster for that kind of thing, but without making it so that your draft experience suffers from it.
Okay.
So like if I was going to a local draft, they would probably use draft boosters. And then if I was winning prize packs, I would assume that it would be like a set booster situation.
This would almost be like if Flesh and Blood had a standalone set and a supplementary set for the same set. So I could walk in and I could get the supplementary style, which is really building my constructed deck. Or I could walk in and get the standalone, which is about sealed and draft.
Yeah. So a good example for comparable in Fab for Monarch would be if they had a draft booster and a set booster, that Dread Scythe that was pretty powerful in Monarch. Maybe it does show up in draft boosters, but it's like way more rare. But they don't want that card to be actually super rare. So they put it in the set booster more frequently because it's not going to just tank like the experience of draft.
Right on.
And when you do open it in a draft booster, it's like an even bigger deal. even though like from a rarity perspective, it's not that big of a deal.
Right on. Okay.
And in Constructed, Dread Scythe never even gets played.
Yeah.
Like that's a really good example in Fab of why you might end up in this situation.
Mm-hmm. So that makes sense. If you're looking to collect the game, you get a set booster. If you're looking to draft the game, you draft booster.
Yeah, except for
that's easy.
Hold the phone, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Then there's a third kind of box called the collector booster box.
So like the gold label black
box. This product is crazy town. So currently, as it sits, which gets us to another issue here, the going price for these online, on Amazon, on TCG Player, wherever you might find a booster box online, is $420, $450. And this is interesting for a couple of reasons.
Yeah, it is. I can tell you one of them.
Well, check this out. In a collector booster box, you actually only get 12 packs. So you get less packs. You also get less cards.
Right.
Total per pack.
Okay.
But this is where if you're a collector and you like fancy shiny things, this is your box. So
aptly named.
The odds of getting alt art, high rarity, hard to get stuff, it's like they just got rid of all the other stuff. And it's like, if you're just here for the big stuff, buy this box, right?
Yeah.
And so it would almost be akin in Fab if like there was a 12 pack box. So let's say every pack comes with 10 cards. It's like every card's gonna be foil. Every pack's gonna have a gold foil. That kind of stuff.
They're all majestic or higher. That kind of thing.
Or like there's going to be at least 2 majestic cold foils, and there's going to be at least 1 legendary cold foil. And like you just know. And like right now with Fab, the legendary cold foils come one in every like 10 boxes. So if each of these boxes had one of those in it, it then lets you charge potentially a lot for this one thing. If those things are actually truly sought after, then now they go further. Hold on. There's another interesting part to this, but there's lots of layers. One is that there are actually cards that only come in the collector booster. We'll come back to that. Let's put a pin in that. The other part is really, it's truly, when I say interesting or fascinating, I mean it. They do not have MSRP.
Yeah.
That does not exist in Magic. They got rid of it. So the current price that I'm stating is the $470. And what's particularly notable about it is if you go to the Magic website, because I'm over here asking, how am I supposed to buy this? Like, what's normal?
Yeah, good question.
What do people do? Like, because I see Wizards is selling it directly. Like, that's guaranteed I'm going to get it.
They're selling the boxes directly?
Well, directly through Amazon.
Oh, Lord. I didn't know that was happening.
So that's what I'm saying.
They did it secretly through Amazon.
No, they directly do it through Amazon. But also what's crazy about Amazon is once they're sold out, if they do ever sell out, like you can't exactly tell who you're buying from. It's a little,
right. That you don't have the buyer thing as much anymore, the seller thing.
But when it first hit, there was a moment, someone on our Discord was talking about, they were there when they first listed them and they were like $299 a box. And then as people bought them, like the price went up, which I don't know. I don't know the details of how this works and stuff, but you can buy direct kind of through Amazon. The price is not MSRP. There's not like a listed amount that it's going for. But
if they're selling it through Amazon, that has to be the MSRP, right?
I mean,
who's going to outcompete the publisher?
So I don't know, man. But because what happens though is the pre-orders will stop at some point.
Yeah.
They'll stop, like Wizards themselves will stop. They'll tell Amazon, hey, we have this many in stock. And once we're out, they'll pivot to other people who are trying to sell it somehow. And again, I don't even know. I'm not on the business side. I don't know the distribution. I don't know how stores get allocated, any of that business. But I do know stores will get some number of all this product that they can buy. And it's very typical for like these collector boosters. Whatever they're selling for now, there's a whole category of content creators that talk about this stuff. But like the general expectation with the standalone, like they did a 40K set last year, is that they will probably be what they are priced now locally once it first comes out. And whether, again, I don't know. Maybe you can get it, maybe you can't. So I have no clue. So I'm sitting here like, do I need to buy it now if I want to get any?
Yeah.
Or like, what's the singles market like? Are boxes available after? Which box should I buy?
Mm-hmm.
Like what kind of, and even like between the draft and set questions are like, well, I want to buy, if I'm going to buy a box, I'd rather have it be draftable. But also, how much value am I giving up? Because they're like the same price.
Yeah.
It's like, how much
versus
value?
The set.
Yeah. It's like, well, how much value am I giving up to be able to draft it once?
Yeah, like value in terms of like long-term value.
Yeah, even just like...
Because like you might play 5 drafts, but you end up with a collection that you don't have as much fun with over the next 5 years.
Sure. Yeah. And what I'm gathering, and I know this to be true of collectible games, so I went through a couple phases of what I was planning on doing. But I actually think the right solution is don't buy boxes at all, buy singles.
Yeah.
Because most of the stuff that you are going to get is going to be very cheap. And so you can just literally buy bulk or buy exactly what you want. And then if you want to buy any of the fancy stuff, most of the stuff, right, is going to be $5 to $20. Like the characters and all that kind of stuff. And the super fancy, crazy, really rare stuff, some of it might be worth a lot of money, but like if that's not why you're here.
But you are kind of there for that, aren't you?
Well, yeah, sort of. So that's where we come back around. And again, like it's so bizarre. Like you go to the website and there's 2 options. You hit they have all these items on the Lord of the Rings page, and there's a pre-order button. You click it, and there's a drop down.
Wait, do they have more than the 3 booster boxes?
Oh yeah.
For real?
Well, because
I mean, what else do they have?
let me pull it
Hold
up.
on, I need to go to the website real quick. Let's go to this together.
Let's
go to Wizards of the Coast.
This is it may be the Wizards website.
Wait, no, it's
right
Magic
now.
the Gathering website probably.
It's Wizards. Magic.wizards.com.
Okay, there it is. Magic.wizards.com. Okay, Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle Earth. Join the Fellowship. Pre-order the latest set today, direct from the freaking publisher. There it is. You can pre-order from your local store or Amazon.
Well, you can't really pre-order from a local store. You can find local stores that have. That's where I went down this path.
A little shout out to the local store there. Let's see if it works. Tulsa, Oklahoma. Okay. I see a Dragon Slayer Games, of course.
Yep.
Been there. That's all I see is Dragon Slayer.
Yeah. And
not even Dice Addiction or anybody on there?
Well, they do. They will have it. And so will Wizards.
Wizards of the down the road.
Wizards Asylum.
Wizards Asylum.
Yeah. So they will have them, but they will have them in stock probably on release day. And if you're there and you want to buy it and they have it in stock, you can buy it. And the price, there's not an MSRP. So who knows what they're going to charge you.
Okay, I see it now. It was set to events when I went there. So we got Dice Addiction, Dragon Slayer, Trade Routes. Never heard of that.
Yeah, I mean,
is that like a hobby? Just a genuine hobby store? Alien Games, of course, our friends over there in Jinx. They mainly do like Yu-Gi-Oh, don't they? Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon.
Yeah.
And then Wizards Asylum, been there forever, do comic books as well. Wizards Asylum is like the grandfather of stores.
Yeah, it's been here forever.
So you basically could call these stores and say, can I pre-order Lord of the Rings? Did you try that?
So I went into one of the local stores Discords that I'm in.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, hey, are you guys going to have pre-releases for this? How do I sign up? And are you going to have products? And it was basically like, not really pre-order. And when it comes out, we should have it, is the vibe. And there probably will be pre-releases, but we don't have information on it yet.
But it could be like I'd be the first in the door to get
maybe
a collector box.
I couldn't tell you.
You have no idea. But they probably don't know how much they're getting too, don't they?
And that's part of it. And they don't know, if it was a normal Magic set apparently, it would be probably expected to be in stock for at least a couple of weeks. With Lord of the Rings and seemingly more interest, it's like, who knows? And will they reprint? There's a lot of ambiguity. But you can see on this over here. I don't know, is this page wrong?
Yeah, I'm on there.
Yeah. So they also have a couple other things. They have a starter kit, which looks cool. They have jumpstart boosters. So that's a whole different lane.
And jumpstart is shuffle 2 together. It's kind of a Keyforge, Soulforge thing.
Yeah. And apparently those are really great if you're just like in the store and you want to buy 2 and play a game.
Mm-hmm.
And they're really bad for building a collection or like getting anything that is like rare or collectible, so to speak.
Right on.
So I skipped over that because I'm definitely not doing that. They also have Commander pre-built decks.
Okay.
Which are
there are 12 products here.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. They also have a bundle gift edition, which includes one collector booster pack, some rare cards, a traditional foil treatment cards, special alternate borders, and themed 4 promo card scene series and more to be announced later. They also have a bundle. I
like that it's just called bundle.
The Ultimate Fan Kit. 8 set boosters, shiny traditional foil and alternate art cards, an oversized spin down life counter. Steve, I hope you're doing well out there, Horvath. And 4 promo cards. And also, there's a pre-release packs.
What's a pre-release pack?
Well, according to here, it says fun for new and seasoned players to play at local game stores. So I assume that's what you get for playing.
When you go to a pre-release, you get a separate product than the standard products.
Yeah, so I assume stores have to order the pre-release product.
This is amazing, Zach. From their perspective, how do you print all of these? How do you decide how many of everything to print?
Well, luckily, they print like 18 sets a year. And so you have a ton of data.
Yeah.
And the variance is different. Like when you're printing tens of thousands of boxes or if you're Magic, I presume printing millions. It's like 5 million versus
printing millions?
Yeah, easy. I mean, there's Magic packs in every Walmart and Toys R Us and so but when you're printing and if you assume let's say 5,000 US stores, if they're each buying this is the game, right? I don't know, 50.
Just do 100 for easy math.
Yeah, 100. That's 500,000 boxes just there. And I assume it's actually way more than that because there are apparently tens of millions of Magic players.
Yeah, worldwide especially.
Yeah, so if the average player is buying a half of a box, you're printing 10 million boxes. And I think it's more than that.
But then you're like, but this is our Lord of the Rings set. So you have to assume twice as much demand?
I mean, who knows?
3 times? And is there going to be more demand for pre-release packs or is there going to be more demand for set boosters or more on the collector side?
I don't know. Yeah, it's a good question.
What a miserable equation.
And
I can go on Amazon and pre-order all of this right now.
Well, sort of. Crazily enough, you go over there and some of it you can.
Some of it's unavailable.
But I was wanting to get the bundle that has the Commander decks, and that's just unavailable.
The gift bundle? Oh, no, I see it now.
There's one that just has the 4 Commander decks. Apparently, those are usually pretty cool.
Okay.
Pretty good value for, here's a baseline deck to tweak and add stuff to. And these prices change. I've been to this page every couple weeks. Like the box, you see the set booster is 205 right now. That was it was 180 or something when I first started looking.
Well, and ultimately, why wouldn't it? Why shouldn't it? Why should any collectible anything have an MSRP at all?
MSRP is sort of an emperor's clothes moment for me.
Why should anything have an MSRP?
Yeah, what is an MSRP?
Yeah.
And when Magic did away with it, right? It's it was tied to them raising the price that they're charging to distribution and retailers. But historically, MSRP is really there to dictate what percentage of that off is a retailer going to have to pay. And then that is how much is a distributor going to pay. And presumably back, especially before the internet, this is just the expected price. But there's really not a lot of... Magic might have the power to do it, but for most games, it's so hard to police or enforce any sort of... this is the price you have to charge because publishers don't have agreements with stores. They have agreements with distributors. And so distributor has a product and sells it to 5,000 different stores who can then sell it online and under any name they want on various platforms and eBays and TCG players and stuff. And it's well, how is a distributor even going to dictate anything that's happening here?
Yeah, I would imagine it'd just be okay, I've got a booster box I want to sell. I'm gonna say, all right, distributors, I'll sell you this for 70. Do you want it or not? And if they all say yes, that's cool. Okay, so I made 70 per booster box, and then they can sell it for however they want to
however
retailers,
much they want.
If retailers will buy it.
Yeah, and the weird thing is
then you can compete on price.
Yeah, sure.
Actually,
for real.
You really can. But one distributor can sell it for less, and
some of the interesting parts are one, Magic selling direct.
Yes.
2 is
took a page out of Stoneblade there, didn't they?
If you don't, if there's not enough supply to satiate demand, then price will go up.
Right.
In real economic situations.
Right.
That's, the market.
I've seen the curve, the X and the Y.
So to speak at work, yeah. So
invisible hand.
I think if you're Magic or Pokemon, the goal would be to print 99% demand. Or 100.01%. If you overprint, then the whole speculator / collector market / even the value of, like, someone's explained, again, long time out of collectibles, and most of our time in collectibles was not when we were in business. But there's an element of, if you can open a box and the singles in it on average are worth more than the current price of the box, people will open boxes and sell singles.
Right.
And the more boxes that get opened, the less boxes that are unopened that exist. And so as the supply goes down, if the ongoing demand for boxes stays even where it's at,
because you can make money by opening one.
Yeah. Eventually, you will have less, like, supply of boxes will be less than the demand for boxes, and then box prices will start going up.
Mm-hmm.
And that basically continues until it's not worth it to open it to get the things inside the box.
Right.
And so if you print too much product, then people are just trying to get boxes out in any way they can. So then that also, it's like a cycle either direction. So like if you print too much, the price goes way down. Because like people are trying to offload products, and if I can get a $50 box and open it and get stuff for cheap, cool. And if you don't print enough and demand is higher, then people are willing, like Lord of the Rings, let's say it comes out and I can't get it anywhere. It's like, well, right now maybe I can pay $200 online, but if I was expecting to get it the day after it came out and I just can't, the only place I can get it for is $250 online. Well, suddenly the price is starting to move up, right? Until the point people aren't willing to pay that much anymore.
Right.
So the real trick of all of it to me is less about intentionally underprinting and more about how do you increase demand? Like, and not just like falsely either, but like actually, like, genuinely, is it a great product? Is it what people are wanting? Or is there a reason they're going to keep, like when Magic first came out, they weren't having a conversation about it. Be careful not to print too much.
Yeah, right.
It's like they just made a game, people fell in love with it, and it went crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And, there was some...
But now the strings are being pulled all the time.
Yeah, speaking of strings,
Speaking of Emperor's Clothes, man.
Let me...
put anything they want in those packs all the time.
Let me tell you about some Emperor's Clothes. So just today, as we're recording this, I've been on the fringe, and it's like, okay, I think I've decided singles is probably, like, I'm going to play local pre-releases and buy some packs, and like I'll open some and have a good time. But if I can play some local drafts, that'd be fun. And I'm probably going to pivot into just buying single stuff. I might end up buying a box or something if it's on the shelf. But today they announced, they've been announcing more information because we're getting closer. I think it comes out in June. But they announced apparently they have serialized cards.
I've heard about them before.
Yeah. So it's just marked. It'd be like if there were Michael Jordan rookie cards and it was like 1 of 1,000.
Yeah.
And it's like number 18 out of 1,000.
No difference in the card. Just they decided to put some stuff on it.
Sometimes it's like alt art, and that's the only way it comes. But it's like there's 900 and they're signed by the artist. Or you see this in like top Star Wars cards. They'll be like, 1 out of 1,000 packs has an autograph from a Star Wars actor.
You see it in paintings too. It's like your prints. They'll like, we only printed 100 of these, and
I have like some Star Wars Celebration prints that are 1 of 150 or whatever. But they announced the One Ring serialized version, and it's an alt art One Ring in the Tingmar Lord of the Rings language.
Another Steve Horvath special.
That is, the old.
You love that Arabish,
Arabish, yeah. It's a 1 of 1.
Okay.
So there's literally going to be one of these that exists somewhere.
We've kind of been waiting for a collectible game to do this, haven't we? As a community, like why has nobody else thought to put super crazy rare stuff in their boosters?
I totally would. I would golden ticket this.
Yeah.
To,
There's 5 of these. Like,
I would do some of the 90s crazy stuff that you see. Yeah. Where it's like, if you open one of these, we're going to fly you to Orlando to come to the, 8 people are going to get a literal golden ticket, and like we're going to do this thing. But it's a 1 of 1. It's a beautiful card. And it's going to probably be one of the rarest Magic cards of all time.
How could anything possibly be rarer than 1?
I don't know. Well, the thing about it would be, if it's 1 out of, let's say 10 million packs of this that get sold versus like, the ratio. It's
sure.
The size of Magic at this point, and the fact there's only 1 of this card, and it's the Lord of the Rings like thing. Because there's only, I think there's some hundreds of Black Lotus as an example, the original thing. So it's very rare.
Don't know if it'll be more valuable.
Sure.
It should be technically, but it just depends on if there's enough people who want this one ring card. I think, there's a lot of history and Magic love baked into some of these Black Lotus and these original 9 Power 9 cards. It's like, I wonder, I can't wait to see, because it was also just a different time, and it's like nobody knew these things, and that gives them a special. It's just, Zach, it just is different because they know what they're doing. Like those early sets, it was just like, oh wow, this is crazy, we had no idea. And now they're like, we're going to print 10 million boxes, include one of these, and people are going to chase that puppy like crazy.
Yeah, like maybe a good comparable is a totally different topic, but for a long time I've wanted a black 1969 Ford Mustang. I don't know if I'll ever buy it. It's not very practical. There's just so many, even in just things I could do with, right?
Well, at least it can get you from A to B. The one ring can't do anything.
And it is a car. But like that car is a valuable car. It's not crazy, but compared to other cars from 1969 in good condition, it's a valuable car. Most 1969 cars would not be worth very much money.
Right.
But it's not valuable because they said, you know what, we're only making 100 of these things.
Right.
It's valuable because it's a iconic, cultural, classic, just a car from that era that is like somehow still looks good.
Defines the muscle car era, doesn't it?
And like it's so good, people still want it.
Like, and it goes 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds, boy.
Boy. But with collectibles, I mean, there's two things here, right? The price and MSRP, and then also just what's the actual value of any of this?
Yeah, like everyone's got to buy into the game, man. Everyone has to buy in.
Oh yeah, sure.
The collectible game, like, not even the game of Magic.
I was like, what are you talking about?
Collectible game.
Yeah.
Everybody has to buy in. Wizards buys in, players buy in, distributors, stores. Everybody's got to buy in that it's fun enough or worth enough to keep doing it this way.
Sure.
The moment people stop buying into that, it stops existing. But people bought in from the very beginning of time.
Yeah, and like, there's a comparable for me. A card in Fab I really wanted was the Marvel Italian Viserai.
Yeah.
It could have been any language, but the Marvel cold foil is absolutely just beautiful. He's like my favorite hero. I know they're very rare, but the rarity is not the interest point to me.
Sure.
I actually play Viserai a lot, and if I'm going to sit there and have that character on the table, I would rather have that card sitting there. Like, it looks better, and it's like art is viewable. Same with this card. I mean, this is going to be a beautiful card. So someone somewhere, again, what's the value? The value is only going to be what someone's willing to pay for it.
Right.
And I can easily see, sort of like a while back we talked about, another thing I would like to own at some point is a first edition Charizard. It's like, if I owned a first edition Charizard, it would definitely be on a wall somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it would basically be a piece of art. I wouldn't be buying it for the utility of playing Charizard.
Yeah.
I would be buying it for the history and it's like an old document in a museum, or a piece of art in a museum. To me, a first edition Charizard is like a piece of art from my childhood that's very rare and hard to come by, and like a thing that would bring me joy from seeing it.
Yeah.
So same here. If you had this One Ring, I assume the person that has it is going to have it displayed and encased, and like, it's not even in English or a language that most people can read.
Yeah.
So this is not a play this card situation.
Yeah. It's a prestige piece. Like, I knew even Eric from Sorcery, collect that Power 9 and has a really nice set of those, and that's as much about it's like honoring your childhood or honoring kind of your journey as a human being, as it is, certainly playing with them, but even looking at them very often. But it's just that you've been able to spotlight formative moments for you. And it's like, if you have the, the wealth and the ability to do it, like, some people really enjoy that.
Yeah.
Like enshrining things that were so important to you and that made you what you are.
Yeah. Now, this is not yet important to anybody.
But there's some Lord of the Rings fans, man, that's just like, Lord of the Rings is my life.
Yep. And if Lord of the Rings and Magic is your life.
Oh.
And like, you could be the one person in the world that owns this card.
Yeah.
I definitely understand there will be interest in it to a large degree.
How much sell on my Bitcoins to buy that thing?
How much? Gosh. How is your Bitcoin doing?
Non-existent, man.
Yeah.
Did you know you can get a Charizard grade 9 PSA for $18,000?
What language is it in?
Normal.
No.
For us, English. Sorry, English. Japanese had to have been first, right?
Yeah, but Japanese, they look different.
Really?
They actually, this is a weird tangent, but Pokemon, I think in the next set is switching from the yellow borders to silver.
I did hear that.
And I think Japanese has always been silver.
Cool.
So that's the thing.
Actually, I remember I had some of the Japanese cards. I think on accident, my dad bought them or something.
Yeah.
The PSA 10 is $36,000.
That's so cheap.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it used to be like
it got up to
100,000.
So. It was crazy in the pandemic times.
Man, that's the time for it, isn't it?
But that's a good example of like, I definitely appreciate there's a certain amount of money that's just ridiculous to have.
Yeah.
And like you can either
probably define that.
You can either put that money in a bank, which is topical. Where's that money even actually at?
Or you know what? Maybe you couldn't.
Yeah. That whole system. That's another Emperor's Clothes moment.
Everybody's
where it's like,
playing games, dude.
Like the basics of I deposit my money, my bank only has to have 15-20% of that on hand at any moment. It's like, you're very leveraged. What if we all came, it's a wonderful life. What if we all came and we took our money out at the same time? What then?
Some of us wouldn't have our money.
SVB.
Yeah.
Better be in line first, dog. But the reason I say that is if you're in a spot where you're willing to pay $36,000 for a Charizard, you can spend your money however you please. But someone that has that because they bought it and they had it when they were a kid, or they bought it a decade ago for $5,000 or whatever it was, like money is just such a funny concept. And it's like, well, like if I open this one ring, as much as I would like to keep it, you
got to sell that and you got to give me some of that money.
You're like, I need a driveway and a house.
Money's a really funny concept. It's really funny for the first 20 years or so of my life. It's like, where is it? Where did it go? It's funny. It keeps disappearing.
Well, the main part there is that for the first 20 years, money is a concept.
Yeah, it's an idea, isn't it?
But, like if you open this, it's like, personally, I would probably sell it.
You must.
And the things I could do with the money would bring me a lot of joy, right? Or value to me and the people around me. Whereas if you want to have it on your wall, so it's like in terms of what someone that is capable of spending $100,000 on a card like this, as an example, would otherwise do with their money. Like the money eventually gets to someone who's going to do something with it that matters.
It just kind of gets passed around. It's like this weird.
Yeah.
I've thought about that a few times. Yeah, you just have to stop.
Yeah, don't do it because it'll make you uncomfortable.
And then like the banks fail, and stuff, and you're like,
well, at least I have my one ring.
You kind of like raise for just a second. You raise the little like curtain, and you're like, I wonder what's going on. Then you're like, I have too much to deal with right now. I can't possibly try to explain how any of this works.
Yeah, well, because it kind of like a collectible game. Money only has value because we say it does.
True.
That a piece of paper with a number on it or a number in my bank account has actual zero value.
Yeah. It all just comes down to food and shelter and fire and water.
And so that's what's kind of funny even about the crypto jabs that we throw is like even our own money right now is just a digital number.
Yeah.
Like for most people, unless you have it in a mattress, but even then it's just paper backed by the US government.
But at least there's an asset attached. Like the economy of a country.
That is the asset, apparently. Spoiler, if you haven't been to America, don't. Just kidding. America's a lovely place.
But there's a lot of stuff out there. So I'm not saying that collectible games I've come around on that.
I think the main point for me there is money itself is similar to a collectible game in that the value of these things is an agreed upon thing or a subconsciously agreed upon to a point. Like when it comes to a legendary in Flesh and Blood that you use to play in a tournament and the tournament requires you to have to play that card, you can't just like print it or draw it or whatever. There's a utility value there.
Yeah.
You can actually use it. There's not just like a whatever like art has value too, right?
Just aesthetic value. Yeah.
Like if someone bought a piece of art by honestly, it's so funny. I can only think of musicians right now. Like I'm thinking Mozart and Beethoven, and it's like,
dude, you can do Picasso.
There it is.
That's a classic.
I was trying to think,
but really, Van Gogh is where it's at.
And Van Gogh, or any
Van Gogh
famous art, right?
Yeah.
Even the sorcery, like the physical art that's being done. Like if someone bought a physical piece of that art, I would not be like, oh, that's a waste of money.
Yeah.
Like I have art in my office, and it's like I don't think that's a waste of money. And so it's funny because you look at this and it's like, what are you gonna do with a card? Especially when you aren't even probably gonna play.
Well, you could do more with that than a painting in a lot of ways.
Sure. You could also do all the things you can do with a painting. But in Fab or in these games, there's a utility value, and a lot of the pricing in like singles and stuff is based on utility. And utility is what generates demand, and then demand compared to supply creates price. But when you get to collectible pieces, which are just alternate versions of the same, because there's actually 4 different versions of the One Ring.
That's kind of a funny thing to say, isn't it?
There's the main set regular card. There's one you only get in the bundle. There's an extended art version that you can get in the packs. It's a little harder to get. It's just more rare. Kind of like the full art 20 blade or something in Fab, you know? And then there's the one of one serialized collector only booster box.
And it's only the collector boosters, right? So it's like the greatest slot machine on earth.
It is basically a lottery situation. So that is where it's kind of like more fascinating, because when it's an actual usable piece that people want or could even speculate on based on future utility, and you have the art aspect, like there's the Marvel Viscera I was talking about, where it's like on the table, like there's actually an art value there for me. But where it gets weird, beyond the understand how money functions and how collectible games function, and why are these alt art high-end collectible, why is a cold foil worth more? Because people appreciate aesthetics. Like that's why those are worth more. Like it's a cool look and people like it. So it means demand is more for that version than the other. Where it gets interesting is when you zoom out far enough to say, okay, well, Wizards of the Coast decided they were going to print a card that only has one up in this set.
Across the 4 booster lines that they're doing.
They're putting it in the most expensive.
One of the booster
lines. And it's also supremely rare.
Really rare.
So they are pulling strings.
Oh, 100%. The moment you have a collector booster, it's just like, hey, anybody want the slot machine? Here it is. And then for those of you who, like, it's the same thing with any of the MMOs or any of the fantasy, these games, the games that people spend a lot of time staring into, which I have done a lot of that as well. Also, relatively pointless. Also, really a vehicle for social interaction and engagement. But when we're playing Diablo or World of Warcraft, right? There's the super special, hard to find monster who drops the really crazy special rare stuff once every 2 weeks that spawns. And then there's the normal monster that drops most of what you need, and it spawns every 20 seconds. And it's like, do you want to go after the 2-week monster today? And then it's like, well, yeah, because it drops cooler stuff. So I'll spend more time and more energy going to get it, and time and energy equate to money in the grand scheme of things, ideally. I wish it was a more direct connection myself. But yeah, so this is like the classic thing. You even see this in casinos, right? There are some machines that say like they cost more to get in, but they're supposed to pay out more. You have a chance of winning a higher amount of money.
Yep.
High stakes poker, et cetera, et cetera. So they got the collector booster for that psychology. They got the set booster, which I think is just seemingly a call out to like, this is kind of like normal Magic packs, minus the draft stuff that you maybe don't want.
Yeah.
And there's draft stuff that's explicitly for draft, and then there's pre-release for pre-releases. But all that to say,
and there's a jump start for like an easy to get in the moment thing.
What are you gonna do then? Like, what's your plan?
So, I think my plan is to play in pre-releases, to play in like drafts and sealed events after it comes out, and probably to pick up singles.
So you're going. See, I thought you would be on like at least a box of collector.
Well, we're not done yet. So I don't know. It's tempting.
But don't you know though? Really?
It's tempting. It is tempting. I'm a collector. I like, you got to take a shot at getting the One Ring, but
one box, right? What could one box hurt?
I think it's possible I could get convinced that I would be interested in buying a collector box, but there's also just like, I'm still so unfamiliar and unfamiliar with what is actually going to come in that box. And am I going to really like the art? And like, they're showing some things, and they also have like serialized rings of power. And this was really clever. They had the because there's in the Lord of the Rings, there's the 3 elven rings and the 7 dwarven rings and the 9 for the humans, for the men. And so they have 300 elven rings, 700 dwarven rings, and 900 rings for men that are serialized. And that's cool. That would be cool to get. But like, I don't know.
That collector booster is like 2 months of groceries for me.
Oh, we're like 1 week of gas out in the country.
It's true.
And there's some really cool looking stuff in here. Here's the land. Did you see this yet?
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. Yeah, it's cool.
Which I think are really cool. So
it's cool.
I'm trying not to jump the shark on this one.
It's fine.
Like, if I'm going to have Magic decks, this is what I would do.
I'm just amazed that you're going all in on the in-store play. I can't wait to get a report about that.
I'm genuinely curious to see what that looks like. And I'm curious to see what kind of, I'm going to ask a lot of questions when I'm there too. Like, how many people are new here because of Lord of the Rings, and how many, like, is this what it's normally like, and what do drafts look like? What's the schedule? I've had this looming curiosity about it, and I also learn from experiencing stuff. So I want to get my hands dirty.
Well, that's great.
And I want to be able to talk about it less stereotypically and more actual experience on the ground with what's going on. Even just having to go through what I had to go through to have this conversation, I appreciate and learned a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And so much of our industry is actually based on this game and what's happening with it. So like, yeah, it feels important to know.
And it's still here, and it's being pre-sold on Amazon, and local stores are still buying it and selling it, which is just, all right. So the publisher's competing with local stores directly.
Yep.
And it's still functioning.
And I think that's notable. Because our previous, I'm trying to think about what our previous conversation was. I know recently we had this conversation.
It also explains the angst.
Oh, it was about the Sorcerer pre-order.
Yeah.
And I know when Magic dropped MSRP and started selling directly, there was a lot of friction. But seemingly stores keep buying and players keep buying and stores keep selling.
Seemingly, yeah.
You know, Magic is Magic. It's huge. So even if you, let's hypothetically say you were making 10, 20 million booster boxes, 1 million of those going direct isn't taking enough off the table that I think most stores are going to notice.
But don't you have to think that an entity reporting to a shareholder-driven company is going to be encouraged to sell 1.5 million, 2 million, 5 million, all of it directly?
I have very strong opinions about public companies.
I mean, like,
but yeah,
we know the price that these end up at. So we know distributor taking a cut. We know publisher or retail stores are going to have to make some money. But I guess I've also heard from retail stores that they don't make hardly any money on boxes of Magic.
That was something I found out sort of recently through Sorcery, which is apparently a Magic store. Most stores are paying $95 to $100 a box. And then the price of most boxes after release ends up being like 120, 125 online. So they maybe make $20, $25 a box.
They rely on like pack sales, singles, I know are a big
Packs,
deal.
singles, draft, events, Friday Night Magic.
Events.
The whole thing.
It's great.
And I do think in Magic specifically, there's a lot of transactions that happen that are on the shelf and immediate and buying a couple packs, and I'm here on Friday night, and I was okay. I'll take one collector booster of Lord of the Rings and just like,
yeah, just see.
Let's just see. You know, maybe I paid $20 for the pack or 25, but like,
actually, according to these, there's 12 packs in there.
I think so.
There's really 12 packs in there.
He was saying it both as a question and shocked.
That's a $40 pack, Zach. Right now, one pack of that is $40.
I mean, we here on stream have opened $40 packs.
That's true.
So I'm not above it, but I did not pay $40 a pack.
I'm not above it
for those packs. You know what I mean?
It's like a collectible mindset right there.
I'm
not above it.
Questions for me, and apparently for the special sets like this, it's more true than the regular sets, because they also do this with every set.
Yeah,
they have all these different things in the collector boxes and stuff.
Do you actually know how many sets they have per year? On average, we got to get out of here next.
It's a lot. I saw a chart the other day. It was like number of sets that get released, and it was like a curve of Magic, and it was like a lot because this is like this is playable in some format of Magic. I don't know which one. This Lord of the Rings set, but like this is not even one of the primary sets.
Yeah,
this is like an extra thing.
Yeah.
So
that's been fascinating to hear about. I'm glad you took the time to do it. Thank you for that. And hopefully it was, I think a lot of our audience is probably similar to you. Like they probably haven't played Magic, certainly recently, maybe in the last 10 years. Some of you have probably, been playing the whole time, but hopefully enlightening conversation. It certainly has been for me. Now, the next thing I want to know, I want you to go to these events. I want to know all about that.
Well, we'll check back in.
I can't wait.
I assume the pre-releases will be like early June.
Okay.
So more on that later.
Yeah, I'll be here. And then you
Friday
can talk,
Night Magic.
You can talk with great authority whenever you're, playing sorcery or anything else. Like, oh, well, this is how it's different from Magic because I'm a pro now.
Yeah. Well, not even. I'm just so fascinated by the whole thing at this point. And it makes sense how you eventually get there and the reasons behind why all this stuff exists. But like, it was a lot. Mm-hmm. It's still, as someone who's very experienced, I kind of started this earlier, but the idea of getting involved is so crazy. Like,
maybe that was the grand pitch to the local store. It was like, listen, we're going to make this so complicated that they need you.
I assume a ton of people learn on the app.
Oh, yeah.
How to play. And then they probably also, a lot of people get introduced from friends. Mm-hmm. So you just have someone to kind of guide you. But it's this whole world. If you didn't know anything about card games, it would be even crazier what's going on here.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for listening. If you got thoughts on this, podcast discussion channel of our Discord, great place to be. A lot of great chats about these episodes and everything else, honestly. So appreciate you listening, and we'll see you next time. Until then, keep playing.